All right, so get this. Imagine like a British war hero, you know, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood stars like Charlie Chaplin, living the high life. But
Living the dream.
but at the same time, secretly working as a highly paid spy for the Imperial Japanese Navy. Sounds like a movie, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's this is the real deal. We want to take a deep dive into Frederick Rutland, also known as Agent Shinawa, and his story is, well, even more unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
We've got some amazing source material to go through, including an interview with Ron Drabkin. You know, he's the author of Beverly Hills Spy and really our expert on all things espionage.
Yeah, he's a great resource.
So,
What's fascinating about Rutland's story is this real juxtaposition.
yeah,
How does a man who, risked his life for his country, a celebrated pilot, how does he end up working for a nation that would later become an enemy?
it's a real head scratcher.
It is, yeah. It's one of those things that you kind of scratch your head and you're like, how did this happen?
Absolutely. And Drabkin's research really gets into the nitty-gritty of it all. Uses declassified FBI files to really paint a picture of Rutland's double life. So let's rewind to the beginning. Rutland, he didn't come from privilege. He had humble beginnings and, according to Drabkin, like a burning desire to kind of climb that social ladder.
Yeah, really to kind of like rise above the circumstances he was born into.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that ambition and paired with his sharp mind, a real knack for engineering, all of that led him to join the Royal Navy at just 14 years old.
14.
14. He actually fudged his age to enlist. Talk about driven.
That's wild.
It is pretty amazing.
And that drive propelled him to become a pilot, a skilled one at that.
Yeah.
But it was during World War I that he truly, made his mark.
Yeah, World War I was really his proving ground, you could say.
The Battle of Jutland, one of history's largest naval battles, really becomes the stage for Rutland's rise to fame.
Yeah, it's quite the setting, right? Imagine this. Over 250 warships locked in this just brutal clash. And Rutland is piloting the only aircraft present.
Wow.
And he's chosen for this mission because of his skills, not only as a pilot, but as an engineer, too.
Really?
Yeah, he designed the radios on the planes himself.
Wow. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about him in this, flimsy seaplane.
Oh, yeah.
Making history amidst this, massive naval battle.
It's crazy.
But what did he actually DO during the battle?
Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting. It was the first ever carrier-launched combat mission, and Rutland, flying over the German fleet, radioed back crucial intelligence about their position.
So that's what earned him the nickname Rutland of Jutland.
That's it. National hero overnight.
And national hero, yeah. But his heroics didn't stop there. On that same mission, he saw a British warship sinking.
Oh, wow.
A sailor plunging into the, icy North Sea. Knowing Rutland, I bet he didn't hesitate for a second.
You're absolutely right. He grabbed a rope and jumped into the churning water. Wow.
I mean, between these warships, to save that sailor.
It's, I can't even imagine the courage that took.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other level of bravery.
This guy is like a real-life action hero, praised for his bravery, his innovation.
Yep.
In fact, just a year later, he pioneered a new method for launching aircraft from warships, right?
This is a great example of his engineering genius.
Yeah.
He figured out that a light aircraft could take off from a platform built right on a battleship's gun turrets.
Wow.
Revolutionary at the time. It meant ships could launch planes without stopping a huge tactical advantage.
So he's pushing the boundaries of naval aviation, a decorated war hero.
Yeah.
And yet this is where things take that dark turn.
Yeah, yeah.
Despite all his achievements, Rutland felt overlooked and undervalued by the British military, passed over for promotions, and that ambition of his, it kind of curdles into resentment.
Yeah, you can almost see it happening.
Right.
That sense of injustice was, according to Drabkin, it was a key factor in his later decisions.
Yeah. He felt slighted, like his contributions weren't being fully recognized.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a recipe for disaster, right?
And that leads him to walk right into the Japanese Navy's office in London and just offer his services.
Such a bold move.
Yeah, bold move.
It was a huge gamble. Remember, Britain and Japan were allies at this point, but there was this growing rivalry, especially in the Pacific.
Oh, yeah?
And the Japanese, they were eager to build their own carrier strike force.
Right.
They saw Rutland's expertise as a golden opportunity, really.
It's crazy that they just welcomed him, with open arms.
Well, they were shrewd about it.
Right. You'd think there'd be more suspicion.
They were. Initially, they kind of presented it as a job with Mitsubishi,
Okay.
a private company,
Mm-hmm.
This was to kind of appease any British concerns.
Yeah.
But in reality, Rutland was working directly for the Japanese Navy.
Wow.
A fact, of course, that was kept hidden from the British.
So Rutland heads off to Japan, leaving his career and country behind. What exactly was he? What was he doing over there?
He was knee-deep in developing Japan's early aircraft carriers, the Akagi and Kaga included.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, ships that would later play a significant role in the attack on Pearl Harbor.
It's kind of chilling to think about, isn't it?
It is.
This British war hero contributing to the very force that would attack his, well, future ally.
It's one of those historical ironies that's hard to wrap your head around.
Absolutely.
His focus, though, was on the crucial stuff, improving landing gear, because you don't want those planes bouncing off the carrier decks, right?
Right.
Refining carrier operations to make their strikes more effective.
So he was essentially shaping the future of naval warfare,
He was.
just not for his own country.
Mm,
So he's helping the Japanese build a world-class naval air arm.
he is.
But from the looks of the material you share, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
You're absolutely right. The story takes another turn when Rutland is sent to, wait for it, Hollywood, disguised as a trading company executive.
Wait, hold on. Hollywood.
Hollywood.
A British war hero turned Japanese spy, living it up in Hollywood.
That's right.
It just gets more unbelievable by the minute.
Truth really is stranger than fiction.
Oh, yeah.
And the Japanese Navy bankrolled his extravagant lifestyle. A luxurious home, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood's elite, people like Charlie Chaplin. He used that charm, all those connections, to gather intelligence.
So it's like something out of a spy film.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does he actually get his hands on this, top secret information? Is it just cocktails and casual conversation?
Rutland was a master of deception. He infiltrated the British United Services Club,
Okay.
a social club for British actors in Hollywood.
Right.
And he used it as a base to befriend U.S. Navy personnel, extracting information through, seemingly harmless chit-chat.
So he's using his British identity and war hero status to gain the trust of American officers.
Exactly. He'd casually ask about their work, their ships, new technologies.
Yeah.
People were eager to, brag to a famous war hero.
Right.
He was so good at it that even the FBI described him as well-poised, giving the appearance of affluence and breeding.
He was hiding in plain sight.
He was.
But surely it wasn't all charm and cocktails. What else was he doing?
You're right. Rutland wasn't afraid to use more, shall we say, covert methods.
Okay.
He hired agents, including a former IRA member,
Wow.
to work as a night janitor at Lockheed, stealing plans for the P-38 Lightning fighter.
A former IRA member.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite the connection.
Quite a network he had built up.
He was running a full-blown spy ring under the noses of the Americans.
He was.
It's amazing how long he pulled it off.
His downfall began, surprisingly, with the outbreak of World War II in Europe.
Oh.
Remember those regular trips he was making back to Japan with his intelligence reports?
Yeah. You mentioned one of those trips coincided with the start of the war.
Exactly. And that's where things started to unravel.
So what happened?
Well, Rutland's lack of interest in, supporting British war relief efforts,
Wow.
that kind of raised some red flags among his Hollywood acquaintances, particularly the British actors he'd befriended.
Wait, so the very people he was using as cover
Yeah.
ended up turning him in.
It's quite a twist, isn't it?
Talk about a twist of fate.
Yeah. They went straight to the FBI with their suspicions, and that's when Rutland's carefully constructed double life began to crumble. The FBI, they had a real dilemma on their hands, didn't they?
Yeah, you would think so.
I mean, imagine, right? Exposing a decorated British war hero
Yeah.
as a Japanese spy
Oh, yeah.
that could have blown up in their faces.
In time.
Especially, with Britain trying to get the U.S. involved in the war against Germany.
Right. Yeah.
The headlines, right?
So what did they do?
They couldn't just sweep it under the rug, could they?
No, I wouldn't think so.
So what they did, they decided to force Rutland back to England,
Okay.
basically making him Britain's problem. They revoked his passport
Wow.
while he was refueling in Ireland,
Oh.
put a screeching halt to his Hollywood adventures.
Wow.
What a sudden fall from grace.
Yeah. So he's back in Britain under suspicion. His reputation's tarnished. What happens next? That they throw the book at him?
The British authorities, they were ready to prosecute,
Okay.
but there was a catch.
What's that?
They had tons of evidence that he spied against the United States, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't actually a crime in Britain at the time.
So they couldn't touch him.
Not really, no. I mean, for a while at least, it's almost comical.
So he just got away with it.
Well, for a bit, yeah.
Okay.
Declassified memos showed that the FBI, they claimed they had enough evidence to, and I quote, shoot him.
Wow.
Although MI6, Britain's intelligence agency, they weren't sure if the Americans were serious.
Serious about shooting him. That's a bit dark, even for the world of espionage. It sounds like Rutland was playing a very dangerous game, and both sides were willing to go to extremes.
Oh, absolutely. And everything changed after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Right. Yeah.
With Britain now at war with Japan, they could finally detain Rutland without trial under wartime regulations, calling him an enemy of the state.
So after all of his scheming and close calls, he ends up imprisoned in his own country. I imagine that was a harsh reality check for a man who once lived in the lap of luxury.
It was a world away from his lavish Hollywood life. According to Drabkin, some of Rutland's old Royal Navy buddies, they tried to defend him in the House of Commons,
Yeah.
but their efforts fell flat. I mean, the stain of being a suspected traitor, especially during wartime, was impossible to erase.
It makes you wonder what was going through his mind during those years of imprisonment.
Yeah.
Did he regret his choices? Did he ever try and justify, what he'd done?
That's a question historians still debate. Yeah.
Rutland always maintained that he was innocent,
Right.
but his true motives, well, they're still kind of shrouded in mystery. Some believe that he was driven by that lingering resentment,
Yeah.
A thirst for revenge against the British establishment,
Right.
the one he felt had wronged him.
That wounded pride, that feeling of being overlooked. It could certainly drive someone to, to make some drastic choices.
Absolutely.
But is there any evidence that he actually bought into Japan's ideology?
Some speculate he genuinely believed in Japan's cause,
Okay.
seeing them as this rising power capable of challenging Western dominance. Maybe he saw himself as, playing a part in reshaping the world order.
It's a unsettling thought.
It is.
Here's this man, he fought bravely for his country, yet he ended up siding with a nation that would later wage war against his former allies. It really highlights the moral complexities of espionage,
Oh, yeah.
the personal dilemmas people face in times of conflict. And it's vital, I think, to consider the historical context, right?
Right.
The period between the world wars, it was a powder keg of shifting alliances,
Yeah.
rising tensions. The world was really kind of teetering on the brink of another global conflict.
Yeah.
And individuals like Rutland, they were caught in the crossfire.
So what ultimately happened to Rutland? Did he ever face trial for his actions?
No, he was released without charge after the war.
Okay.
But the damage was done. His reputation was in tatters. His life, in ruins.
Yeah.
Tragically, he took his own life shortly after his release,
Oh, wow.
leaving behind a legacy full of contradictions and unanswered questions.
What a sad end to a story that began with so much promise.
It really is.
He went from, a celebrated war hero to a figure shrouded in suspicion and ultimately despair. I can't help but wonder if he ever found peace with the choices he made.
That's something we can only speculate on. Rutland's suicide note to his children, according to Drabkin, it was deeply personal, full of love, regret,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't offer any real insight into his motivations or his final thoughts on his actions.
It's a poignant reminder that even those we put on a pedestal, the heroes we celebrate, they're human.
Yeah.
Capable of great acts of courage, but also susceptible to making, terrible mistakes.
Rutland's story, I think it's a cautionary tale
Yeah.
about the seductive nature of power,
Yeah.
the allure of secrets, the devastating consequences of betrayal.
It's a story that continues to fascinate and intrigue, raising questions about loyalty, ambition, and the choices we make, when we're faced with extraordinary circumstances.
It also reminds us that history is rarely black and white.
That's for sure.
It's full of shades of gray, where motives are murky and individuals find themselves navigating, these treacherous moral landscapes.
And it really emphasizes the importance of critical thinking
Yeah.
looking beyond the surface, grappling with the complexities of the past.
Yeah.
Understanding these nuances, I think it gives us a much richer appreciation of history and its impact on our present.
Well said. It's definitely a lot to process. Before we uh, before we move on, though, I'm curious about Rutland's impact on the war itself.
Yeah.
Did his intelligence gathering actually give the Japanese a significant advantage?
That's a question historians have wrestled with for decades.
Yeah,
There's no doubt that Rutland provided valuable intel about American naval capabilities,
right.
aircraft design.
Yeah.
He's believed to have supplied information on the range of American aircraft, which was crucial for the Japanese in planning the Pearl Harbor attack.
So he directly contributed to one of the most pivotal events of World War II.
It's in the source material you shared.
That's a chilling thought.
It is. His influence on Japanese naval doctrine is also, a subject of debate. Some argue that his insights into carrier operations, aircraft design, helped them refine their strategies.
Okay.
But others, they believe the Japanese were already on track to developing a formidable naval air arm, regardless of Rutland's input.
It's a complicated legacy to untangle. On the one hand, he's this decorated war hero who put his life on the line for his country. On the other, he betrayed that country and contributed to the success of its enemies.
Right.
How do we reconcile these two sides of Frederick Rutland?
That's the challenge, I think, with studying history, especially when it comes to espionage.
Yeah.
We're often dealing with individuals who, they operated in the shadows.
Right.
Their motives are layered and complex.
Mm.
It's tempting, I think, to just simply label Rutland a villain,
Right.
a traitor who betrayed his nation for personal gain. But I think it's much more nuanced than that.
I agree. His story raises so many questions about ambition, loyalty, and the moral dilemmas faced in times of conflict.
We have to factor in the historical context,
Right.
the
Yeah.
social pressures he faced,
Yeah.
the personal resentments, that may have fueled his actions.
Yeah.
It's not about excusing his betrayal, but understanding the factors that led him down that path.
It's a powerful reminder that even those we consider heroes have flaws, make mistakes, and even commit acts that we find reprehensible.
Exactly. History, it's full of these contradictions. It's rarely a clear-cut story of good versus evil.
Right.
It's messy, it's complicated, and often full of moral ambiguity.
Well said. I think that's a great point to transition to the final part of our deep dive into Frederick Rutland's complex and ultimately tragic story.
Yeah, it does. It really does make you think. Frederick Rutland's story is it's captivating, it's unsettling, and it definitely raises more questions than answers. That's for sure. But let's shift gears a bit for our final thoughts. You provided some great research about his legacy, his impact, and I'm curious to get your take on it all.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, we can't ignore the fact that Rutland contributed to the very events that brought the world to war.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his story forces us to grapple with those gray areas of history, right?
Yeah.
Where motivations are rarely pure, and individuals are often caught between those conflicting loyalties.
Right. Exactly. Well, we're not here to condone his actions, but to try to understand them. To see the bigger picture, so to speak. And that's where Ron Drapkin's book Beverly Hills Spy comes in.
Right.
I mean, the excerpts you shared were fascinating.
Yeah.
But the book really, dives deep into Rutland's story, the historical context, the intricate web of espionage he was involved in. It's a must read for anyone interested in this period of history, especially if you're drawn to those complex characters who defy easy categorization.
It's definitely on my reading list now.
Yeah.
It's amazing how one man's life can intersect with such pivotal moments in history.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about dates and battles.
Yeah.
It's about the choices that individuals make, the consequences of those choices, and the ripple effects that continue to shape our world today.
Well said. And for anyone listening, if you're as captivated by Frederick Rutland's story as we are, we highly recommend checking out Ron Drapkin's book, Beverly Hills Spy. It's a real page turner and provides even greater context to what we've discussed today.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, into the world of espionage, betrayal, and the complexities of history, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more captivating stories.
Yeah.
We cover everything from science and culture to those hidden corners of the past, always aiming to bring you fresh perspectives and thought-provoking insights.
We love exploring these intriguing topics and can't wait to share more with you. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deep.